mind is like a computer. No matter how efficient it may be, its reliability is only as great as the information fed into it.
That's a campaign promise.
Tell us the truth. Tell us the truth.
We mandate that the truth be told.
You're hearing it.
TNT.
Welcome back, folks. Welcome back. We're still in the first hour of this live broadcast. Thank you for rejoining us. Now we're going to pivot over to talk about the Middle East, and especially to talk about what's happening right now in Gaza. The humanitarian disaster that is impending is now unfolding. It is the very thing that people warned about for the last few months, and the excess deaths are now climbing. There's also a threat of starvation. There's a lot of issues to get through, not to mention all of the other political and the security stroke military issues that people are going to have to get through as well. I want to welcome onto the program special guest. She's a Palestinian activist. Her name is Hiba Hajaj. She's been on the program before, around the beginning of the conflict. Hiba, thank you for joining us on TNT.
Thank you for having me, Patrick.
Now, Hiba, I know there's a lot of things that we need to address. I know that you're also very active on a number of issues. Right now, I just firstly want to get your reaction on the International Criminal Court talk of filing for arrest warrants for Israeli officials. Want to get your reaction on that. How significant do you think this is? What do you think the timeline might be on this? And what does it mean politically? Go ahead.
It's very significant. And I think this is where every activist, every person that stands with Palestine needs to multiply. Whatever we've been doing, we need to multiply it by 100, because this is where the law now needs to be applied. We can't pick and choose where and when and who the law is applied to. And I know we have zero faith in our government, and the UK will probably not, if Netanyahu did step foot in the UK, they probably won't arrest him and hand him over to The Hague, as they should. But I'll tell you this, the Palestine movement in the UK will carry out a citizen's arrest. In accordance with the law, Section 24A of the Police and Criminal Act 1984, we can carry out a citizen's arrest. We can encourage our government or press our government to apply the law and hand him over to The Hague. And I think every movement, every Palestine movement in the world needs to read up about the law, know your rights, and know what you're capable of doing. I'm not saying anyone should break any laws. I'm saying apply the law accordingly based upon your geographic location.
And this was one of the strategies that activists have used in the past to attempt citizens' arrests for Israeli officials like Ariel Sharon in the past. Also, Tony Blair himself, along with Augusto Pinochet from Chile, but activists had attempted citizens' arrests on Tony Blair, unsuccessfully, of course. But this is, look, when there's nothing left, if the government, who's a signatory to the Rome Statute, Britain is a signatory to the International Criminal Court, if they're not going to enforce the warrant based on political reasons, then what's left to do? And you're basically saying that's the last option, is the citizen's arrest.
I think we need to take matters into our own hands. We are literally saving humanity, or what's left of it, as we speak. And we need to put pressure on our governments. Our governments are there to serve the people and protect the people of the nation. It's very simple. So,
or vote them out, or vote. That's also an option. Don't forget about the democratic process. So we just want to throw that out there.
Well, that's why Rishi Sunak has announced elections on the 4th of July. I think this government is struggling to keep things together, and it's just another indication of how much trouble this government is in.
So over to the situation right now in Gaza, also in the West Bank. Tell me, just based on what you're looking at, we see what you're putting out on Twitter, X Twitter. But what are the most important issues right now people should be paying attention to? What's not getting sufficient coverage regarding Gaza and the West Bank? Go ahead, Hiba.
Well, I think the humanitarian crisis in Gaza, well, as well as the West Bank, but mainly in Gaza, needs a lot of attention. And I think no matter what we do, it's never going to be enough. But I have a question for the general public. The population of Gaza was 2.3 million. There's currently, everyone was pushed into the south, into Rafah, and there's currently 1.5 million approximately in Rafah. Where are the other 800,000 Gazans? That's my question, because the number of deaths is almost the 60,000 people have died mark. Where are the other 800,000 people? Because nobody seems to know where they are. And this is a question that I keep asking myself because their whereabouts are unclear. There is a lot of people that are still under the rubble. There's a lot of people that they have not found their bodies. There's another major issue where the IDF is taking bodies and hiding them. So I think this is an issue, a really important issue that needs to be addressed, because if we start talking about the day after the war, when people start investigating and discovering mass graves like they discovered previously in Gaza, I think the number of deaths is going to increase. And I don't think our minds are going to be able to comprehend the number of deaths in Gaza. And if you manage to escape death and reach a hospital, the whole healthcare system in Gaza has completely collapsed. The IDF has murdered 493 healthcare professionals. They've injured more than 600. They've arrested almost 350 of them. I mean, the numbers are never going to be accurate because we don't have an accurate way of measuring this. They've targeted over 155 health institutions, 32 hospitals and 53 health centers are completely out of service. It's either due to being bombed or they've run out of fuel. So it's a very, very difficult situation. And so, yeah, if you manage to escape death, you end up dying in the hospital from the shelling, or because the hospital is just not capable of providing the medical care, the urgent medical care that's needed. The IDF deliberately targets ambulances. 130 ambulances have been completely destroyed and they're completely out of service. And this is when people of Gaza need ambulances, need medical care the most. So instead of trying to support the healthcare system, the IDF is completely destroying it. They're making Gaza completely unbearable to stay in. They're trying to push people to flee. But again, the borders are all closed and there's nowhere to go. Let's not forget that Gaza is a very, very small area to start with.
Yeah, and just to footnote on what you said, the first question, where have all the people gone? By some people's accounts, there's still an estimated between 200,000 and 300,000 people still in northern Gaza, but that leaves quite a lot of people unaccounted for. There's real problems with the breakdown of civil administration, the breakdown of the healthcare system, as you said, the inability to keep records of the dead. This is another thing that people have complained about, some of the systems and the manpower, the administration. A lot of that has either been disabled, destroyed, or is inoperable at the moment. So I think the point you're making, Hiba, is that the death toll could likely be much higher, the direct death toll, much higher than what is currently being tabulated, not to mention the excess deaths. These are deaths from lack of access to basic medical treatment for lots of different things. Also, lack of clean and potable water, lack of sanitation, the total destruction of the civil water and sanitation systems as well by the IDF, and just the general siege that's keeping aid from coming into the Gaza Strip, full stop. So this is going to create a massive wave of excess deaths. And also, Hiba, maybe you could speak to the recent reports by international organizations that there's now a starvation epidemic right now in Gaza. But any more information on this would be greatly appreciated.
So mainly in the north of Gaza, because it's almost impossible to get any aid delivered to the northern parts of Gaza. There has been several deaths, especially mainly in children and elderly, because of starvation, because of famine, because they've been unable to provide urgent medical care or even water or even basic food. So we've already reached that stage. We reached that stage weeks ago. The fact that the world remains silent, the fact that world governments remain silent, and the fact that politicians still supported Netanyahu in this is completely appalling. And I think all these politicians need to be locked up. We need arrest warrants for every single one of them. Every single one that put up an Israeli flag and said, "I stand with Israel" at the beginning of this conflict should also be arrested. Every single person who stayed silent was also enabling this genocide and supporting this genocide. So anyone who's not, it's cutthroat right now. You're either with Palestine or against Palestine. There's no in between. So you're either on the right side of history or you need to be locked up.
So you shared a clip on X, Hiba, and it's from a hospital setting. But yeah, we're going to play that clip in a moment. If you could just explain what's in this clip before we play it. I think it's Al-Shifa. Is this on the site of Al-Shifa Hospital? And it's dialysis. I'm not sure what exactly the facility is, but recently shared on your Twitter feed, Hiba.
So the IDF completely destroyed the whole of Al-Shifa medical complex. Al-Shifa is one of the largest medical complexes in Gaza. The southern side of the medical complex was the kidney dialysis department, and they managed that particular part of the complex remained unharmed. So the colleagues and the medical staff pulled themselves together and managed to make it operational. And so that clip shows how they've managed to save lives, literally save lives, and offer treatment to those who needed dialysis. The head surgeon who was in charge of this is Dr. Marwan Abu Saada. And they managed to restore parts of that department and offer urgent medical care.
Well, we've got that clip right now. Let's go ahead and roll that, and then we'll get your reaction afterwards.
Okay. Today, 23rd of May, 2024. Today we announced as a Ministry of Health, the opening of one room of dialysis in the Department of Dialysis in the Shifa Medical Complex after the full destruction of the medical complex and the burn by the Israeli invasion in March. Despite the atrocity that took place in the hospital, the Ministry of Health and the medical staff were determined to continue providing the service for the population. After shutting down Kamal Adwan's hospital for the invasion of Jabalia camp, yesterday the hospital announced that it's out of service, and the inaccessibility of the patients, inaccessibility of accessing the health service there, because of the bombardment, the risk of losing their life while trying to access the hospital. Kamal Adwan was the last place where dialysis patients could get the service there. Because of that, and despite the non-continuation of the rehabilitation of the Department of Dialysis in Al-Shifa Medical Complex, they reopened one room to provide the service for only for 5 or to 6 machines. This is the dialysis. This is the dialysis department here, and the rehabilitation work is going on. It's only like one room that has been rehabilitated to serve the patients who are at risk of losing their life at any minute. This is the building that the building that has been burned by the Israelis when they invaded the hospital in March, where multiple massacres and atrocities took place. The medical staff, the administration, the health administration in Gaza is fully determined and dedicated to continue serve the population and continue the rehabilitation of the building of the hospital here, to continue providing the service, the health service for the population.
Wow, Hiba, unbelievable. So let's just be clear. That was a fully functioning hospital. It served tens of thousands of people, residents in northern Gaza, and then it was attacked and destroyed more or less by the IDF. And what reason did the IDF give at the time for destroying this hospital and killing so many people inside it?
Well, the same excuse that they always give: Hamas. The thing is, Hamas has only existed for 30 odd years. The IDF has existed for 76 years, and they've been slaughtering Palestinians ever since. So nobody's buying the Israeli narrative anymore. I think the past 7 months have just shown the world Israel's true colors. And I think once people have reached the truth, it's completely impossible to unsee the truth. So the Israeli narrative can go in the shredder and the shredding machine, and so can all the lies and propaganda that they've been spreading. I have some details about Al-Auda Hospital in northern Gaza. It was under IDF siege for 4 days. The hospital had 140 patients in there, and it also had those patients' relatives, companions, friends, as well as the healthcare staff. At 3 o'clock on the 22nd of May, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, the IDF asked them to evacuate. They evacuated them by force. Only 14 patients managed to remain in the hospital, with 8 other of their friends and 12 medical admin staff. Two of the employees were completely isolated from the rest of the staff, and they didn't give any reasons why they did that. The Ministry of Health on the day put out a statement to provide protection under international law to help evacuate the rest, but it didn't happen. So until today, the locals are looking for a safe place to send these people, 140 people, and their friends and medical staff. So that's one example in northern Gaza.
Yeah, I mean, it just put this in perspective. If you're in a European country and there's a national health service, and you do something like step on a rusty nail, you are basically in danger of potentially a life-threatening infection, some kind of tetanus infection. Just imagine the things that people get basic treatment for, that could cascade into a major health crisis if they have zero access to any medical care. That's the situation in Gaza. Israel systematically destroyed dozens of healthcare facilities, including major hospitals. And they did this systematically and intentionally. And that was all very well documented. This is also in the International Courts of Justice investigation for genocide convention violations, which is currently in process in The Hague, ladies and gentlemen. So what we were telling you here is often not reported and not reported enough, but just think about what it would be like in your community if there was zero healthcare facilities and you couldn't get to any, even if you wanted to, even if it meant 3-hour drive. It's still not available. What would that be like, especially for the elderly, the vulnerable, newborn infants, mothers, postnatal, prenatal care, etc. Think about it, what you take for granted, ladies and gentlemen. So I'm with Hiba Hajaj. She's a Palestinian activist, and she's got some incredible information to share with us about the situation right now in Gaza. Hiba, if you have a few minutes, do you want to stay over the break, after the break with us, if you have anything more to share with us?
Sure, that's fine.
Okay, we're going to go to a break right now with TNT, Today's News Talk. When we come back, we will talk more to Hiba Hajaj about the situation, increasingly precarious and dangerous disaster that's unfolding right now, humanitarian disaster in Gaza. I'm Patrick Henningsen. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Prescription drug pricing points to corporate
Freedom of the press is about your right to know.
and Clark sheer athleticism.
It's about your right to be informed. Today, there are real threats to press freedom
reaching residential areas.
and your right to know about the world around us. We must protect our right to know, no matter what kind of news is important to you. Before it's too late, understand the threats. ProtectPressFreedom.org.
Patrick Henningsen and TNT.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back. We're still in the first hour of this live broadcast with a special guest right now, Palestinian activist Hiba Hajaj, joining us on the live link. Now, Hiba, there's some clips that have been circulating that are incredibly disturbing. I'm going to highlight one of them. This has been, it's actually been out for a few days. At least the first time I saw it was this week. This is a particularly disturbing scene of a Palestinian man going to get water, to fill up 2 water canisters from a well or a standpipe or hose. And when he gets to fill up the water, he is then killed by the IDF. And I'm going to play this clip. This is from the account My Lord Bebo on X Twitter. It's one of the biggest accounts on Twitter. And again, this is not anything unusual compared to some of the incredible things that we've seen in the last 7 months. But let's go ahead and roll this clip, and I'll talk our audience through it. Here you can see this is a father who's got 2 water canisters. That's well labeled there. And as soon as he goes to retrieve the water, he is basically killed by the IDF. I mean, the barbarism here, Hiba, it seems as if the Israelis are not deterred by the international justice system. They just keep carrying out atrocity after atrocity. And but this isn't going on deaf ears, I think, in the global court of public opinion. I think a lot of people have come to realize that we're dealing with, a major rogue entity here. When you're talking about the state of Israel, they don't fall into the normal bounds of international norms. And while a lot of activists had said this over the years and tried to highlight the plight of the Palestinian people, especially in places like Gaza, now the world knows. There's been ample opportunity and examples and pieces of evidence, exhibits that really show just how extreme the barbarity has been for not just the last 7 months, but really for decades. Your thoughts?
Well, nothing the IDF does surprises me anymore. Every day I wake up and I think it can't get worse, and it does. So I think the world needs to realize that we are dealing with a country that is acting like a mobster, that doesn't follow any rules or regulations or laws locally or internationally. They will do whatever it takes to spread as much destruction and as much slaughter of Palestinians as possible. And they have no mercy, whether it's a child or an unborn child. You know, you're not dealing with an army that has any sort of regulation. You're dealing with a bunch of psychopaths who enjoy killing children. They genuinely enjoy killing people. And I don't know if there's any cure for that, but someone needs to stop them. Someone needs to take accountability and stop this, because nobody wants to see any more dead babies. There's news just in from local residents in northern Gaza, how the Israeli army forcibly displaced all the residents of the Jabalia camp. I'm just tweeting it now. Under fire, so force them out of their homes under fire. There's dozens of people who have been killed. Their bodies are still on the road. The medical team, the ambulances, the civil defense, the volunteers, they're not able to reach the bodies to take them. Israeli tanks destroyed the whole of the refugee camp, Jabalia refugee camp, by bombardment. And there's not one hospital or medical center that is operational in northern Gaza right now. So, so they just said as well that all the aid that entered previously is beginning to run out. So we're going to have the same issue that we faced, that they faced not so long ago when people were dying from starvation. So the situation is dire. And I think...
And to be clear, how many people live in the Jabalia refugee camp, estimated numbers, when it's normally populated?
Well, it's difficult to say. We don't know. I think people have been displaced more than once. Some families have been displaced 3 times already. So it's difficult to say. Some people did go back, some people didn't. So there's no way you can have accurate numbers. But what I know is northern Gaza, there's approximately 200,000 people there. Specifically in the Jabalia refugee camp, I'm not sure. I wouldn't be able to give you a number.
But suffice to say, Hiba, hundreds of thousands of people have been displaced from that area alone. That's yes. Based on some of the reports that we've seen. So, where are these people supposed to go? We were talking to activists earlier in the week who are building tents and, temporary structures for families, raising the money to try to build some housing for them in Rafah. And you have these types of efforts, but I mean, it's really a drop in the bucket. They're glad to be helping, a few hundred, maybe 1,000, maybe 2,000 people with that sort of an effort. But it's really just a Band-Aid to a major catastrophe. And this is the problem. There is aid, isn't there, Hiba? It's being queued up in Egypt, but it's not being allowed across the Rafah border crossing. Now, the Israelis are saying that's all Egypt's fault, but is it not a fact that Israel controls the Rafah border crossing? And even when Egypt and the EU had control of the Egyptian side, all the aid deliveries would come in and could be stopped, checked, or sent back by the IDF, who had control of certain access roads. So it's not true that this is not because of Israel. It is absolutely because of Israel that aid on the ground has been stopped from the beginning of this crisis. Is that correct? There's
tens of thousands of trucks since the beginning of this conflict on the border of Rafah that the IDF will not allow to enter. The ones that they did allow to enter, they had taken through a different route. They have taken all the contents out, destroyed most of it, and allowed things that are not things that are a small quantity of the things that were needed, and it's just a show so that they can tell the world we've let these trucks of aid go in. But there's clips that you can find online that show that these trucks are 3/4 empty. They've taken all the aid out, let alone all the other trucks that are still on the other side of the border. So, and let's not forget, Gaza has been under siege for 17 years. And even when it was under siege, there was a minimum amount of trucks that had to enter to avoid famine. And that was the minimum. They're not getting that. They haven't got that minimum per day. They have not received that in the past 7 months. So the situation is very bad. That's why we need to amplify and multiply our voices by 1 million to make sure that we put pressure on our government to take action, immediate action. I think we've gone beyond catastrophe. That word is not enough for the situation.
Yeah, and that's not to say anything about the Israeli settlers that have been going to destroy aid delivery, intercepting trucks, pulling the aid off the trucks, destroying it to try to keep the food supplies getting to the Palestinian people. And they're being encouraged by the sort of far right politicians, many of whom are in Benjamin Netanyahu's Likud coalition, to be encouraged by the far right elements in Israel to go and do that on behalf somehow of the Zionist project. I don't know. It's the most outrageous of all scenes to
Barbaric.
See settlers bringing their children and having their young children help them destroy the food and medical aid. I mean, these are scenes, we showed them on the program previously, I think last week. I mean, it's unbelievable, Hiba. Your final thoughts, and we're going to go to break at the top of the hour, but appreciate your time. But I'll give you your final thoughts, Hiba, on this. We got a minute left.
I think at the moment, Palestine is making history, and I think it will continue to make history until there is justice for the Palestinians. I think everything that we've been doing, the protests, the marches, sending emails to your politicians, MPs, disruption tactics, everything we've been doing. And I know there's a lot of people that have been working in complete silence behind the scenes that probably sleep 2-3 hours per day and are still campaigning and advocating around the world. The encampments, the student movement, the uprising, I think everything that everyone has been doing. And if you think you're too small to make a difference, you're not. You are making a difference. Everything you've been doing is making a change, and it's for a great cause, and it's for literally you are saving humanity. So keep doing what you're doing and multiply your efforts. Now is the time to keep putting pressure on your government. Do whatever it takes, because the people of Gaza really need you right now more than ever.
Palestinian activist Hiba Hajaj, thank you for joining us on TNT this week.
Thank you, Patrick. Thank you for having me.
There she goes. You can follow Hiba on X, Twitter, as well as on Instagram. We're following her on X, Twitter, but dropped a link to her Twitter account. It's up at 21 Wire on our show post for today's program here. At the moment, though, we're going to cycle off to the top of the hour news headlines here at TNT. I'm Patrick Henningsen, your host, and when we come back on the other side, we're going to connect with political commentator from the Far East, Ryan Dawson, an American in the Far East, a fantastic political commentator and historian. We're going to be talking about the Ukraine conflict, how the escalation by the West is really exposing the agenda. And it looks like there are people within the Anglo-American establishment that want to see World War III. The question is why, and what can they gain from this? Or are they just playing a risky game of chicken with another nuclear power in the Russian Federation? We'll ask all these questions and more on the other side. I'm Patrick Henningsen. Stay with us. We'll see you in a few minutes.
You are about to hear
today's news talk and the voice of freedom.
That's what this country's all about.
TNT Radio.